Happy Purim. This is Dawn India LaVoice again with Free Gospel Deliverance Center of the Apostolic Faith. And I am doing a teaching on Purim, a holiday that's tonight. And so I'm going to tell you the story that's in Esther, the book of Esther. Just giving the highlights, not reading the whole thing. I'll give you some trivia and then tell you how we celebrate today. It's not just for Jewish people by blood. It's for every believer of the Word of God, pretty much. So I'll tell you what that's about. So, Purim means lots, like you're casting lots. And I'll tell you why. So way back in the day, but after King Nebuchadnezzar captured Judah, we have King Ahasuerus in the book of Esther. He was in power, and he was over Persia and Media. And so it says he was over 127 provinces. That's pretty huge. They said that's literally from India to Ethiopia. So he was in power at the time. He had a lot of governors and eunuchs and everybody that served him. And he threw this feast this particular time. I think he was in power for 3 years at this time. And just want to celebrate. So he threw a feast for like a week. And his wife, Queen Vashti, threw a feast for the women. And so he asked his eunuchs to go and get his queen, because he wanted to show her off to his officers and everybody. She refused to come before him. So the eunuchs came back and said, she don't want to listen to us and obey you and come. So it made the king look bad. And all of his head people and wise men said, hey, you need to do something about her, because if she's not listening to you and talking bad to you like that, our wives are going to do the same. So he made a decree. He said, y'all are right. And he stripped his current queen of her queendom. Said that since you won't show up before me when I summon you right now, you won't show up before me ever again. And so he eventually started missing her. And his advisor said, hey, you're the king. Why don't you ask your different provinces to get every beautiful looking virgin that they have and send them to you. And you can get you another queen, or whoever you pick. So he said, oh, that's a good idea. So he sends for virgins that look beautiful to come to the palace. And one of the virgins that came is Hadassah. Now Hadassah is the actual name for Esther. She was renamed Esther, like a lot of people are in the Bible. So we remember that name because in the Bible, it does say Esther. So Hadassah and her dad, first of all, let me tell you, the odds were against her. Because number one, she's an orphan. She was raised by her cousin, technically, because the Bible said in Esther 2:7 that Mordecai was that she was Mordecai's uncle's daughter. So I think that'll make her a cousin to him, but most of the time we say uncle. But so she was orphaned. She's a female. That's already strikes against you, unfortunately. And the biggest one, she was Jewish. big strike against you at that time. But she's beautiful, sweet, patient, all of that. So she comes to the palace with the other virgins, and they make them go through a time of cleansing, and I think 6 months of this, 6 months of that, before you can go before the king. And so the virgins eventually went before the king when he called for them. And if he liked you, he would call you back. If not, you wouldn't see him again. So the eunuch that gave her the myrrh and everything that was required, she found favor in his sight. So he was looking out for her. Then eventually she was called by King Ahasuerus, and he began to favor her more than the other virgins. So much so that eventually he made her the new queen instead of Queen Vashti. So this whole time she was the queen, but she didn't tell the king or anybody else that she was Jewish, because she knew that was dangerous at that point. So the king, he gets to liking one guy named Haman. That was one of his officials. He likes him. He puts him above the other people under him, and to the point where he decrees that people should bow down to Haman in Haman's presence. But Mordecai, Esther / Hadassah's cousin, is an observant believer, and he knows not to bow down before anybody but God. So he wouldn't bow down before Haman when he would go to and fro out there. So Haman began to hate Mordecai. And Mordecai and Esther communicated still, but through a eunuch. Since she was the queen and he was Jewish, they couldn't have, talk face to face. So she would send a eunuch out to talk to him, see how he's doing, and the eunuch would tell how she's doing. So Haman, I'm gonna fast forward. Haman, when he found out Mordecai was Jewish, it made him hate all the Jewish people since Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him. So he cast lots with some other leaders, Purim, that means lots. So he cast lots to see how he can destroy this people that Mordecai is a part of. And they cast lots, and it fell on Adar 13th. That's what month we're in. You see February here, but Adar is here, and it's the 13th of Adar, if you look at a Hebrew calendar. So that would be the day that he decreed the murder of those people, old and young, men and women. And it says it here in Esther 3:13. It says, letters were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces with instructions to destroy, kill, and annihilate all Jews, young and old, women and children, in one day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their goods. So after they killed them, they can take their goods. Mordecai heard this. He tore off his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and he was just mourning, wailing, understandably. Nothing could console him. Haman would pass by, and at the time, Haman still wanted you to bow down to him or show reverence to him. Mordecai kept on just wailing and mourning his people. And so it says it right here in Esther 4:1. When Mordecai learned all that had been done, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went out into the midst of the city, and he cried out with a loud and bitter cry. He went up to the entrance of the king's gate, for no one was allowed to enter the king's gate in sackcloth and ashes. So when Esther saw him at the king's gate like that, she sent her eunuch to ask what's wrong, because she hadn't heard of the decree. The eunuch went, got the message from Mordecai of the decree to murder his people, and the eunuch went back to tell Esther. Let me see. Esther sent word to the eunuch because Mordecai had told her, hey, you're going to have to go before the king about this. I know he doesn't know that you are Jewish, but he needs to know that you're Jewish and you need to help your people. And she sent the word back to the eunuch, hey, I don't want to, number one, anybody that goes before the king and he don't summon them first, he could kill. If he doesn't let out this golden scepter to save your life, he could kill you because he didn't summon you. Number two, I'm Jewish too. He might just decide to go ahead and kill me anyway. But it says right here in Esther 4 and 12, when the eunuch sent Esther's message back to Mordecai, it says, and they told Mordecai what Esther had said. Then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than any other Jew. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. That's my favorite, one of my favorite scriptures. For such a time as this. Then, let's see. Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, that's the area they were in, and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, nights or day. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. Mordecai then went away and did everything as Esther ordered. She wanted them to fast because she knew I'm risking my life, but she also knew, what is my life compared to all of my people? You know, that would be very, very selfish, but like he said, you'll end up paying too, or deliverance will come from another place, because that's the kind of God we serve. Even if you're not in a place of obedience, he will get somebody that'll obey him instead. So she does that. She goes before the king, and of course he lets out his scepter. He doesn't want to kill his queen. He never had any problems out of her or with her. He actually loved her. And she let the king know what happened. And she said that, my people could be killed. And I'm going to fast forward because it's 10 chapters. I encourage you to read them. They're not very long. But instead of me reading the whole thing, I'm going to just highlight it like I said. So he wrote out a decree that the Jews could defend themselves, because the first decree that went out saying that Jews could be murdered and all of that, what they believed at this time is after a decree comes out, it can't be revoked. So instead of him saying, never mind what I said earlier, he had to put in another decree that gives the Jews permission to defend themselves. And they would outnumber the people and everything. So This says in chapter 8, verse 16, the Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor in every province and in every city, wherever the king's command and his edict was reached. There was gladness and joy among the Jews, a feast and a holiday. And so that it was declared a holiday since then. Let's see. I'm going to go on forward to verse 29 and 20. And Mordecai recorded these things and sent letters to all the Jews who were in the province of King Ahasuerus, both near and far, obliging them to keep the 14th day of the month of Adar, and also the 15th day of the same year by year, as the days on which the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month that had been turned for them from sorrow into gladness, and from mourning into holiday, that they should make them days of feasting and gladness, days of sending gifts of food to one another, and gifts to the poor. I'm going to skip to verse 26. Therefore they call these days Purim, after the term Pur, which means lots, because the lots were cast for this day to be the day that it was okay to murder them. Therefore, because of all that was written in this letter and of what they had faced in this matter and of what had happened to them, the Jews firmly obligated themselves and their offspring and all who joined them. I joined them. You should too, because this is in our holy book, that without fail they would keep these 2 days according to what was written and at the time appointed every year, that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation and in every clan, province, and city, and that these days of Purim should never fall into disuse among the Jews, nor should the commemoration of these days cease among their descendants. So that's why this is a holiday that's ongoing ever since then. So I'll tell you a little bit about how it's celebrated today. When you go, it's first of all, there are parties, a lot of get-togethers at places of worship. People wear costumes, dressed as Esther or Mordecai, or whatever costume you want. You eat sweet desserts. This is one. It's a cookie that's in a triangle shape called Hamantaschen, and you'll recognize the beginning of that Haman. And when you say the words Esther or Mordecai in a congregation, the people will cheer. If you say the name Haman, they boo. It's also customary to have, like, parties. You have the noisemakers. They use that, or this kind that you can shake in the air and make a noise when you're cheering or booing. And like I said, give gifts and give to the poor. Make sure they have some food to eat. It's a time of celebration. That's pretty much what Purim is about. I love to celebrate anything to do with God making a way. But one thing, let me tell you about the book of Esther and the book of Ruth. Do you know that they almost were not included in the canon that we have? I think that's because they're after women. But the second reason why they almost were not included in the canon was because there's no direct mention of Yahweh, God, in them. So, but thank God they kept it in there, because you can't deny that it was a move of God. After you've read it, I've only told you the highlights to get the basic story of Purim, but God moved a lot in the book of Esther and in Ruth. So I thank God that they left those a part of the canon. I hate that some books were taken out, like the book of Enoch and stuff like that. That's the whole Apocrypha. I hate that it was taken out because those books are excellent. So I hope that you can celebrate at least with your family. Thank God for His provisions, because you're grafted in. If you're not, first of all, I don't see Jewish people as just by blood, by natural blood. I see believers. I say the word believer instead, so nobody would feel excluded. If you believe in God, Yahweh, like Ruth said, my God will be your God, my people your people. If you believe that, it's no separation. And I think that's in the New Testament. So you can't argue that one. It's no separation with us. So that anti-Messiah, antichrist spirit that was on Haman to kill the people of God affects more than just Jews to me. That spirit the antichrist spirit has been on the earth for a long, long time. And it hops into different people in power. Like it was in King Herod. Remember King Herod wanted all of the Jew babies killed. Also in Egypt during the time of Moses. That was the spirit of Antichrist too. Any person that allows the enemy to use them to try to destroy a whole people that the enemy know the Messiah is going to come through, that's the spirit of Antichrist, anti-Messiah. So it's deeper, it's bigger than just for Jewish people. It's for those that are saved under Yeshua, Jesus, as well, to celebrate. Because that was the spirit behind all of this that was controlling Haman. But I hope you had a blessed day. I hope I didn't go on too long. Like, my goal was not to be long at all. But I hope y'all have a blessed day. Let me look at the comments before I go. Comments or questions, because I couldn't see it at the same time. Yeah. Okay. Good. This Lester Jefferson said, doesn't this remind you of the Maccabean revolt? Yes. It's that same anti-Messiah, anti-Christ spirit that I was talking about, because the Maccabean revolt happened in between the Old and New Testament, before Yeshua Jesus came. This shows us the justice and mercy of God. Yes. Yeah. Marlon Hudson says, tomorrow is a party at Bethel. Well, I'm going to try to go to Bethel. Is my congregation. And I said I would try to go to that. It's a lot of congregations that are having things. But she said, I'm going to have them cheering and booing tomorrow night. Yeah. So knowing her, she's going to be walking around saying Haman and Esther in folks' direction. All right. That looks like everything, and it looks like no questions. So I hope you understand now what it is. God bless you all. I'll see you guys next Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. But until then, you have teaching from my mom tomorrow night, same time, with Free Gospel Deliverance Center. Y'all be blessed.